Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Economy 2020 event organized by CASPR. Today, we have with us three presenters Udita Ghosh, Nikhil Srinivas, and Ayushi from Madras School of Economics. And we have our panel members, Ms. Ankita Garg and Ms. Saili Bose. The topic for today is policy response to pandemic post economic challenges. So, presenters, you can start the meeting by introducing yourself.
A very good morning to everyone present here. Today, we present our paper titled as Policy Responses to Pandemic Post-Economic Challenges, a sectoral preparedness guideline for the Indian recovery. Pandemics are known to be vastly destructive globally. It is certain that economies across the globe were already perturbed by disruptions in trade flow and hindrances to growth even before this pandemic. The novel corona attack is nothing but a stimulus aiding economic prosperity to falter further, as is depicted in this figure. The viral attack has numbed economic activity in our country, affecting all the large macroeconomic variables contributing to growth and thus growth itself. The objective of our paper is to use economic concepts to analyze and prescribe sector-specific policies by recognizing the impact on some of the worst-hit sectors. Further, we recommend the holy grails for filling the gaps for India's recovery as we move towards her unlocking. We draw from conventional economic theory to form the basis of our analysis, thus using an aggregate demand and aggregate supply framework. We know the impact of COVID-19 crisis will result in both demand and supply shocks. A supply chain disruption largely caused by input-output gaps will cause the aggregate supply curve to shift leftwards. We can see that this would result in a fall in the output somewhere between Y star and Y double star, as we can see in this figure. This will further generate skepticism regarding investment decisions, ultimately retarding investments in general. On the other hand, the aggregate demand curve will also shift leftwards due to additional factors such as disrupting income flows and a generalized fear causing immobility and disinterest in purchasing beyond necessary commodities. The impact on inflation isn't certain as it depends on the elasticities and magnitude of the shifts faced by each of the curves. However, combined demand and supply shocks will undoubtedly retard output growth. We now explore the impacts on certain worst hit sectors as we see here in this figure. Industry one is transport and logistics. We see that the possible impacts of COVID-19 can be segregated into a demand side and a supply side. In case of demand side, we obviously will, due to incessant lockdowns, we will have reduced demand for passenger movements and also a surge in private transport arising out of potential or perceived health risks as we move towards unlocking. In the supply side, there will be downward pressures in prices across various transportation and logistics subsectors, which will reduce supply from businesses in transport and logistics. Also, daily wage earners engaged in these sectors can be anticipated to go on strike, demanding proper redressal from the crisis. Industry two is banking, which is one of the core sectors under the financial services. Here we see that there will obviously be accumulating NPAs as a direct impact of COVID-19. There will be decreasing repayment rates and liquidity risks also associated. Short-term increase in savings might happen, and there will also be an increase in online payment channels. Coming to insurance sector, the possible impact of COVID-19 will obviously comprise of redundancy of the pre-existing actuarial survival analysis and risk reserving models, temporary setback on financial bond markets, leading insurer and reinsurers to seek security of government. There will be three avenues that an insurer will take into consideration in the calculation of an insurer or an insurance company's capital. One, demographic; number two, market; and operational risk shocks. Third industry here is the aviation and tourism industry. Obviously, this is one industry which will have which will be affected gravely because of this, which has been affected gravely, I must say. On the supply side, there have been moderate impacts on price variations, obviously due to declining input requirements as travel plans have been, travel has been hindered. There is cash flow constraints and repercussions as employment in this sector. On the demand side, obviously there has been inherent changes in consumer behavior, instilling fear that will also still remain uh, for some amount of time, as well as cash crunch and bankruptcies faced by party companies. Industry 4 comprises of consumer retail and e-commerce. There has been humongous drop in sales for essentially for non-essential commodities, essentially. Due to supply chain disruptions, there will also be heavy toll on investments and FDIs. Again, we can see a supply side and the demand side for this industry as well, where supply side will be backed by input-output gaps, cash flow constraints and unemployment, and also price fluctuations. And the demand side will obviously result from altering consumer behavior, and that will be a direct result of this crisis. Coming to our last industry that we've considered to be as one of the major worst hit industries is the micro, small and medium scale industries. Here we see that MSME sector has been affected in multiple ways. Almost 25% of the 75 million MSMEs are closed down because of the lockdown. They have been closed down, although they are reviving. The plight of the workers and the skilled and unskilled workers is immense. There is also extreme cash constraints and liquidity risks in the market. There will also be MSME loan defaults and reduced repayments as a direct result of this crisis. Now my teammate will take you through
the sector-specific policy guidelines for a bounce back. Ayushi, would you just...
I'll stop presenting.
Okay. I'm actually seeking control, but it has been dismissed. 1 minute. Ayushi, could you be presenting the slides so I
yes,
could just
sure,
go on?
Sure, okay. Is my screen visible?
Yeah, it is. Like, go over to the next slide.
Okay.
So the sector-specific policy guidelines that we've come up with essentially fall under 3 major heads: fiscal policy, financial policy, and safety and promotional measures. We see that fiscal policy is an obvious GST relief and easing tax compliance, which cater to tourism, MSME, transport, and consumer and trading products. Financial policy measures, they actually take accelerated approval process by bureaucratic bodies for various types of investments which is needed. Working capital loan repayment support must be given by the government, and the sectors that might be on the receiving end of all these facilities would again be tourism, aviation, MSME, transport, and banking and financial sector as well, because they need to come up with new guideline policies given complete change in the overall mortality rate projections and all that. Safety and promotional measures actually include improvement of hygiene and travel standards and reviving the Incredible India campaign, which will also go on to help with the tourism and transport industries. So this is how we address the worst hit industries under 3 broad categories. Ayushi, could you move over to the next slide? Hello?
Yes.
The next slide. So now the third part of the paper that we've come up with is not actually given in the paper, but we've put it across in a slide because this is something we have come up with eventually. So we say that the new normal economic architecture must have 3 propositions that we've put forth. Firstly, would be a restructuring of the government budget. Here, as we see, the government budget caters to a lot of broad categories, but what we need is a reshuffling, and most of which should be provided as funds to the subsidies. And this is basically in order to hinder the processes that can, investment procedures that can actually take a backseat for now, and the government can use those funds in order to aid COVID-19 relief programs. This can be done through, Ayushi, the next slide. Hello?
Yeah, is it there?
Yeah, the next slide.
I changed it.
It's not there yet. Okay, so now what we see here is there needs to be a redistribution towards the necessary subsidy structures. And traditionally, what we've known is subsidy basically caters to food and fertilizers. But what we now need is redirecting the funds towards already existing schemes of the government, which do not receive a lot of funds as of yet, but they need it because of the COVID-19 relief. And under that comes the wage. And we have come up with 3 methodologies of doing that. First would be a cost cutting. Ayushi, the next slide.
Yes.
First here, as we see, is the cost cutting, which aims at basically introducing a new security slab for the unemployed who have lost their jobs due to the pandemic. Second would be a redistribution of funds which have already been disbursed to the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Transport and Highways, Ministry of Railways. And this can be done by hindering the projects, for example, construction of 100 new airports or construction of a new museum, and also by relaxing the project sanctioned under national pipeline projections. And the third and most important weapon that we can use for gathering the subsidies for the government is resorting to public borrowing through open market operations. Now, what the government can do, ma'am, as you can see through the slides, is that it can raise the interest rate, and it may have a two-pronged effect. First of all, it would hinder the investments that are for sectors that are not really necessary right now. And second, it would also increase the demand for bonds, enticing the public. And government sale of bond rising consequently will lead to non-tax revenue rise of government, which can ultimately go into the distress disbursement fund raised due to COVID-19. Now, the more important thing here is raising the interest rate is actually going to tighten the monetary money supply in the economy, which can also help in curbing the inflation that is occurring due to demand and supply side shocks. The second alternative that we've come up with is a model for a relaxed GST. The idea behind this is that there might be a reduction in demand. There might be a reduction in demand due to the ongoing pandemic, but what is needed right now is basically a boost to the demand side, and this can only be done by restructuring the tax, Now the next slide. Now what we have done in our theoretical model is divide all the goods that are present in the economy under two broad baskets, A1 and A2. A1 basically catering to income elasticity of demand less than equal to 1, and A2 catering to goods that are with income elasticity of demand greater than 1. Now, lesser income elasticity of demand lesser than equal to 1 basically implies that the goods are a necessary good, and in greater than 1 basically implies that the good is a luxury. Now, what we need is a restructuring in a way that tax range T1, Ayushi, the next slide. The tax range T1 basically caters to A1, and tax range T2 basically caters to A2 goods. And T1 needs to be lesser than T2 as a constraint because we want the taxes on the necessary goods to be lesser than the taxes on the luxury goods. This can actually be derived from the formula for RNR through a simple solver problem. RNR basically implies revenue from category AI by tax base of the whole item falling under category AI. The next slide will actually show us a table that is a sample for classification. For example, ma'am, we have food grains which are necessary good and can be seen to have an income elasticity of demand 0.31, and the applicable tax range that we propose here is T1, which is less than the one that applies to chocolates, which have income elasticity of demand 1.6 and fall under tax range T2. Next slide. The third proposition that we need here is disbursement of all the credits that the government gathers through the subsidies and the restructuring of taxes to sectors that cater to export. Now, export is important because it provides a country with a window that helps scale up its economy through indigenous seasoning. Now, boosting export, hence, is very imperative. What we see is that the MSME sector occupies 45% of the entire exports that are taking place in the country. So what the government can do in the short run is basically increase the access of these MSME to the market, and secondly, also increase the credits that is disbursed to the MSME sector. The next slide, please. The next one. However, what we feel in the medium run is going to be that the exports aren't going to be suspended for as long as the medium run is concerned. So what we can do is applying credits to the disbursing credits to the MSME can actually boost the export in a lot of ways, and also boost investment incentive for outputs in both domestic and domestic consumption and export sectors, which in fact this increase in investment demand will lead to a rise in the rate of interest in the medium run, and thus also raise the demand for indigenous bonds, and hence we can expect cash flows from other countries to rise. Under such a situation, if we boost the export and curb the imports through the promotional policies for indigenous goods, we can actually boost the overall GDP. Now my teammate will take over.
Thus, we have put forth an assembly of holy grails, which we believe will aid the new normal in India for its efficient functioning. Enlarging the subsidy bubble is essential, for which government needs newer paths to enhance earning. The GST regime has to be restructured to help the government reap maximum benefits without hurting the masses. Also, credit has to be meted out to industries under the MSME umbrella to promote indigenous prosperity. The figure here links all the three propositions as we've stated before. It is a sample of the injections and outflow of resources that we feel will help India find a pathway to stability. In conclusion, we suggest that along with shielding of human capital by prioritizing public health, followed by promotion of digitization and necessary compliance measures, the government needs to protect income and employment of particularly the vulnerable sectors of the society. Also, monetary and fiscal policies, as elaborated on earlier, needs to work effectively to boost growth by boosting demand followed by supply. The government should thus see this pandemic as a positive challenge and use the associated adversities to prepare our economy to emerge out as a greater giant in the global value chain in the coming years. Here are some of the references that we've used for our paper. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, our presenters. So I request our panel members to drop some inputs.
Should I go first?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I have one question. There is something which you mentioned on open market operations, and what you suggested, the framework that you suggested, is completely opposite to what the government is actually doing on the ground. While you are suggesting that interest rate should be increased and the bond market should be expanded, the government is doing just the opposite. So how do you kind of reconcile what you're proposing and what is happening?
Thank you for your question,
Hello?
ma'am. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Ma'am, actually, what we wanted to imply by enhancing open market operations is that the government for entering, it is just a suggestion from our side that the government so that it can cater more of the public funds without generating tax, without making any changes in the tax structure as such, can also resort to public borrowing in such a way that for future contracts that it is intending to enter through open market operations, it can incentivize the purchasing for the general public by saying that they will uh, by actually putting forth higher interest rates so that the general public is more interested in investing now for the bonds, for the government bonds, and the interest payments for these bonds can be set forth by the government as and when the government sees that India is starting to revive, and then they can incorporate and enlarge the interest payments bubble in the budget in the subsequent budgets. That was our intuition behind putting it that way.
Okay, another concern that government has on borrowing money is that it will reduce India's credit rating, and that might affect the foreign inflow of funds. So, you have anything to say on this?
Ma'am, basically what we are hoping for the medium run is for the trade sector to open up, and trade balance also constitutes of the money that is going to come as an inflow from the other countries. Now, if we if we raise the interest rate, what will happen is it will entice the other countries to invest in indigenous bonds. Now, in that way, what we can do here is use the funds that are going to come from the uh, other countries after the lockdown situation is bettered, to use it in other avenues of investment, because what we have now without any foreign aid should be directed solely to the purpose of COVID aid.
Any other inputs?
Thank you for the presentation. This is Ankita. I just wanted to ask one question. As to mostly you have talked about restructuring of government budget or relaxing of GST. So do you have any idea how will government face the fiscal deficit part of these steps?
Yes, ma'am. As a what we have written is, I'm sorry that wasn't visible in the slide. We are hoping for a corporate CSR, which is basically
Corporate social responsibility.
Yeah.
Hello.
Basically, you haven't researched much on how the government handle the fiscal deficit part of it, because
Ma'am,
mostly yeah.
I'm so sorry, ma'am. Continue.
Hello.
I just wanted to add to what my teammate was trying to say is that, ma'am, for the initial few years after we are trying to revive India, I'm sure that the fiscal deficits will have to be more than the government had aimed initially. But then that said and done, if I think if the government works effectively and takes up this challenge to resort to helping the public, taking the help of public to help the public in generating and boosting demand so that the economy at least starts running, the fiscal deficit problem will eventually over the years will definitely gain back to the aspired level that the government would want. Hello.
hello.
Yeah, thanks.
Sorry. Sorry, ma'am, there was a glitch. What I was meaning to say is our tax model basically uses RNR, which has the sole objective of preserving the revenue that the government received even in the erstwhile tax structure. So basically, there wouldn't be much of a difference in the revenue collection, just that the taxes would be relaxed for the necessary goods and taxes would be higher for the luxury goods. And that, in a sense, will actually prevent mass consumption from getting hurt. So the problem of a fiscal deficit wouldn't arise out of this restructuring.
Okay, I get that.
Hello?
Hello.
I'm sorry, am
Okay,
I audible, ma'am?
Yeah, I get that.
any other inputs, ma'am?
Hello?
Any other inputs?
I don't have any other questions.
So, thank you everyone. This was a very wonderful discussion we had. I thank you all the participants and the panel members for joining. It was a great discussion. So we will end now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.